So in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how to set up a free open source alternative to Claude Cowork. Now, before we dive into how to do this, let's talk about why you should even consider using open source AI models locally on your laptop to replace something like Claude Cowork. The first reason is cost. As these frontier labs like Anthropic and OpenAI head towards an IPO, the last few years, they've been subsidizing a lot of the AI usage so that they can gain market share and get users like me and you to really start using their technologies as part of our everyday workflows. But now that they're going public, they're going to shift from trying to gain as much market share and users as possible to becoming profitable. So I can expect these API prices to probably increase quite drastically in 2027 and beyond. And you can probably expect your weekly usage limits in the Anthropic Claude desktop app or in Codex to be much lower as these companies head towards becoming public and going more profitable. The second reason is data sovereignty. So a lot of organizations in regulated industries like defense and healthcare aren't comfortable with sending their data to Anthropic or OpenAI. One, for compliance reasons, but also because they don't want the risk of maybe having their proprietary data used to train the next generation OpenAI or Anthropic model. So for them, it's really important to host models locally, not only to build their products on top of, but to also give local models for their employees to use as part of their workflows to be way more productive, using AI to do things like coding or internal kind of back office workflows. Now let's start setting this up. Now here are the three technologies that we're going to use today. All of these technologies are free and they're open source. The first one is LLMfit. This is an open source project that scans your computer and determines what AI models will actually fit on your laptop's hardware. So for me, I'm using an M4 Pro MacBook. And so I use LLMfit to really scan the ecosystem to determine what open source models are out there that'll actually work on my hardware. So I highly recommend using this to figure out what model will actually work on your laptop or your computer. The second open source project that we're going to look at and use is Ollama. Ollama is an open source framework that allows you to download, manage, and also serve AI models locally on your laptop or computer. This does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to downloading the model, managing it, and then also just making it available for your AI agents or your AI applications. The third tool we're going to use is Goose. Goose is a direct one-to-one comparison between the Claude desktop app and Claude Cowork and what we're trying to build with this open source alternative. So Goose is an open source agent harness developed by Block. This is the company that created those Square point of sale solutions. And so what Goose is going to allow us to do is to be able to actually take the model that's hosted locally on our laptop and start using that model for any sort of workflows that we're trying to automate using AI. So this is the actual harness. So this is, consider this like Claude Cowork. And then the model, instead of using a Claude model, we're going to be using the model that we download from Ollama with Goose. So if you think about how these technologies all stack together, we're using LLMfit to figure out what model can we actually use that isn't going to take 5 days to give us a response. Ollama is going to help us download that model that we find that actually fits on our laptop and then loads it into memory whenever we need to use it. And then Goose is that agent harness that allows us to connect to different tools so that our model has access to all the tools that are part of our day-to-day kind of operations, and then also making sure that it's actually doing work for us versus just generating text. All right, let's start setting this up. First thing, let's start with LLMfit. If you don't have it installed on your computer or your laptop, you can go to LLMfit.org. It's super straightforward. There's a couple commands you can run here to download this on your computer. This is a terminal-based tool, and so you'll have to run this in your terminal. As far as I'm aware, there's no app UI that you can pull up on like a web page. So once you have LLMfit installed, you can just pull up your terminal and run the LLMfit command to bring up the application. At the top, it'll scan your hardware and tell you how much RAM you have available, and here are the list of models that it has information on. A lot of this information is a bit overkill for me. It's not super interesting, but there's two things that I always look for. The first one is fit. So here are the keyboard shortcuts to help you kind of slice and filter through this data. So if you hit the F key at the top, it'll show runnable and perfect and good, marginal, and too tight. So it's telling you based on the hardware that you have, what model will actually fit on your laptop or computer. And so for me, when I'm running local AI, my goal is to solve for latency, because if I am doing routine tasks, I want response times to be very quick. So I'm always looking for models that are either runnable or perfect in an ideal world whenever I'm trying to do anything with local AI models. If there is a task that's very complex and I don't care about latency, transparently, I just go to Claude or Codex and just have it run on Opus or Fable once it comes back. Because if latency isn't an issue and I'm just focused on getting the best quality output, I'm just going to use a state-of-the-art model and I don't care about cost. I'm just going to use that. But when I'm using local AI, I'm trying to solve for performance and also cost versus getting like the best output possible. So I recommend using this to kind of filter and try to find what models there are. The second thing that I do is also sort these models. So you can sort this by using the S keyboard shortcut. So you can sort it by the number of parameters this model has. If you actually keep hitting it, it'll show you like the percentage memory this will take on your laptop and then context size. For this walkthrough, I'm going to be using the new Gemma 4 model from Google. So if we actually go here, so here's the actual Gemma 4 model that I'm going to be using. It is the 8-bit quantized model, the 4-bit quantized model. So if we actually click in here, you can get more information on the model. The main things to call out are I'm looking for a model that has tool use capabilities because that's very important when it comes to agentic use cases like building a Claude Cowork alternative. And the second one here is showing you, how much memory this is going to use if I have this model downloaded in memory. So this is the model that we're going to be using for this tutorial. Now we've used LLMfit to figure out exactly what model is going to work on our laptop. So next we're going to go to Ollama to actually download that model and then serve that model. So here's the Ollama website. You can come to the search bar and start looking for any model that you want, or you can go here and it'll show you just a list of models and you can filter based on the kind of use case that you're trying to solve for. But since we know that we're going to use Gemma 4 from LLMfit, I'm just going to go search for Gemma 4, and then here it's going to give you the command that you can run, and then at the bottom it'll give you more information on the different models available to you. This model I can't run because this will take way too much space. We're just going to use Gemma 4 latest because that is also the same model that we saw in LLMfit, which is the 4-bit quantized model. And if you scroll down, there's just more information around this model, some of the benchmarks and things like that. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to run this command in our terminal to be able to actually pull this model and download it to our computer. Now let's go back to our terminal and run the command that we just saw on the Ollama website. So I'm going to run Ollama run Gemma 4. Now, if you don't have Gemma 4, I already have it installed on my laptop, but if you don't have it, you'll see a download screen where it'll actually download and pull that model and install it on your laptop or computer. But here, since I already have it, it's just going to start a chat window. So I can actually start chatting with this model and say something like hello. And the cool thing about Ollama is you can actually customize this model for specific things. So I won't go super in depth here, but you can change things like the system message, be able to see how this model is thinking, all of that using Ollama to actually customize this model for whatever use case you want. But now in like the last couple minutes, we've been able to figure out what model is going to be able to fit on our laptop. And then using Ollama, we've actually been able to download it and serve it onto our computer. So I'm going to exit out of this. And one final thing that I want to make note of, if I actually go back to the website, if we come here and actually go to the Ollama documentation, I want you guys to like denote this number because this is important when we set up Goose, our agent harness. Let me see, default port. So if we actually come in here, this number is going to be, let me go control find port. So this number here is going to be extremely important because Ollama by default binds that model to port 11434. So what that means is once you download a model onto your computer, in order to serve that model and make it available to applications like Goose, you need to be able to have it hosted on a port on your laptop. And so this is the port number. And so this is going to be important to note because if you don't have that port number, you won't be able to basically configure this model within Goose, which we'll walk through next. Now let's start setting up Goose. So here's the official website for Goose. It's goose-docs.ai. There's two ways to install Goose. You can actually go in here and you can download this like as a zip file, like any other application that you would install on your laptop. Or you can use this command in your terminal to be able to download it. This is super straightforward to download, so I won't spend too much time here, but the documentation is very clear on how to download and get Goose up and running on your computer. Once you've installed Goose, you can open it like any other desktop app on your computer. So here's the UI once you pull up the Goose application. I already have Gemma 4 installed, but step one is going to be how do we configure that model that we just downloaded from Ollama and connect it to Goose. So you're going to come to settings and then you're going to go to models. And then here, you're going to go to configure providers. And then there's a ton of providers that you can go through. But if you scroll all the way down, you'll have Ollama. And then here is that local host port number that we looked at in the Ollama documentation. And so this is the URL that you're going to use, and then the port number right here. And then once you do that, this I just have as a default setting. You're going to hit submit. And then here, once you hit submit, it'll actually show all the models that are available to you. So since Gemma 4 latest is the one that we pulled and have binded to that port, that's the one that we're going to be able to configure, and you just hit select model. And then now you have a open source model that we've installed from Ollama connected to an open source agent harness, in this case Goose, that we can start using for any sort of tasks that we want to run. Now, once you've configured the open source model to Goose, there's a couple things I would do as you start actually using this for your workflows. The first thing is to create a directory either on your desktop or wherever on your laptop that you can have Goose as a working folder. So I just have this Goose test one for this YouTube video. The other thing that I would recommend looking at is in the skills tab, all the skills that are available to all the different coding agents on my laptop, Goose can also pull into. So things like remotion best practices, cold emails, this outbound full, which is specifically for my business. All these different skills that Claude Code, Codex can all use, Goose can also use as well, because skills are an open format and open standard. And so make sure that the skills that you expect to use across your workflows are populated here. The second thing is go to extensions and enable the computer controller extension. This actually allows Goose to do basically like web search, to be able to scrape websites, be able to click links and actually use your computer and use a browser. So I highly recommend setting up this extension as well. But these are, I think, some initial kind of housekeeping things that you can do to make sure that you're getting the most out of using Goose. So now that we have Goose configured to Gemma 4, let's actually see it in action. So here is a very common workflow for sales reps, which is to do account research before they reach out to a company, to build an opinion on why that company should buy their product or service. So we're going to use the outbound full skill, ask Goose and Gemma 4 to research this company, and then create an HTML file on my desktop to be able to kind of render that report. So here it's going through, it's making multiple tool calls. One of the cool things about open source models is you can actually see what they're thinking. So it calls out like, the thought process behind how it's building its to-do list, what actions it's taken, and how it's going to respond to the user. So it's helpful to see that thinking process so that you can help debug if something in your prompt is incorrect or ambiguous, to be able to maybe optimize your prompt and do some prompt engineering to get the right output. And then here it generated this HTML file. So let's actually see the HTML file it gave us. And if we go to the very top, it gives us an executive summary on what is Klein. It's a fully open source, model agnostic code generation platform, talks about its business drivers, its ICP, go-to-market strategy and playbook, some high-impact outbound emails, and then some qualification and next steps. So this is a pretty decent, kind of outbound report if we were going to start reaching out to Klein to try to get meetings with their sales leaders to try to make them a client of ours. Now, one thing that I do want to do is actually compare this performance by giving Claude and Opus 4.8 the exact same prompt to see what it outputs. So now let's see the output from Claude. So this is the prompt that I gave to Claude. One of the best parts about using the closed source models like Claude and GPT is the fact that Anthropic's agent harness is super optimized for running Anthropic models on. And so I don't have to provide as much context when I'm invoking skills or having it do a specific workflow. Where in Goose, I had to wire the Tvili tool to do web searches and make sure the prompt was a little bit better and had more context. But here I just said, execute this skill for this company, and here's the URL. And naturally, the skill should have all the instructions Claude needs to be able to execute this workflow. So did this prompt, Claude went through, used some skills, created to-do lists, and then eventually it outputted an HTML file. So let's check out what Claude outputted. So here is the HTML file from Claude. Naturally, a little bit cleaner than what we got from Gemma 4. It talks about, did it, clear the disqualifier screen, goes through the ICP screen, company brief. This is way more in depth, naturally, than what we got from Goose and Gemma 4 in particular. It talks about buying readiness, ICP qualification. It actually mapped out the pain to the services that AccuSales provides. Buying readiness, go-to-market motion, reconstruction. And I think one of the cool things that it did is it actually found key contacts within the company that'd be worth reaching out to, and maybe some hooks or any sort of points of relevance that are worth use. to reaching out to that person. So if you actually look at this and compare it to what we got from the outbound report from Gemma 4, this is a lot more high level and not as in depth as what we got from Claude. However, the trade-off naturally when you're using open source models, especially on consumer hardware like my MacBook, is the fact that you're cutting off a lot of intelligence, but you're able to do it in a very secure and transparently cost-efficient way. So the cool part is, for Klein, if I really wanted to go after this company, it would make sense for me to use Claude. However, if I'm reaching out to HVAC companies in the Texas region, it might make more sense for me to use an open source model because I can just have this running over hours to be able to create customized messaging for hundreds, if not thousands of companies, versus Claude is really good if you're doing like very deep strategic research on a particular topic or a particular company. It might be worth spending the tokens and spending the money to actually do this workflow because you get a much more detailed and much richer output. All right, that's the video for today. If you found it valuable, follow me here on YouTube. I post weekly on how to use AI and specifically how to use AI to be able to grow the revenue function of your business. So being able to generate more pipeline, close more deals, and also to expand and renew your customers. So if you like that kind of content, follow me here on YouTube. Outside that, I'll see you guys next week in the next video. See y'all.